The most controversial actions of Kim Jong Un. Kim Jong Un is not a dictator at all. He is just a very popular and beloved leader, democratically elected by the North Korean people in free and fair elections, right? Surely all those public executions, extreme censorship, and allegations of massive human rights violations are just misunderstandings. The systematic use of torture and extreme punishments in North Korea has been the subject of numerous reports and complaints by human rights organizations and regime defectors. Among the most shocking practices are public executions, often carried out with especially brutal methods designed to instill fear and exert control over the population. One of the most notorious methods is the use of anti-aircraft rockets, where victims are tied to a post in front of a firing squad and then bombarded with large-caliber projectiles, ensuring instant and extremely violent death. These executions not only aim to punish alleged offenders of regime laws and norms, but also serve as a public demonstration of power and deterrence. The practice takes place in public squares and stadiums, with the population compelled to witness and participate as spectators, thus intensifying the psychological impact on society. These acts are accompanied by intensive propaganda that glorifies Kim Jong Un as an undisputed leader and supreme justiciar, reinforcing the cult of personality surrounding the North Korean leader. In addition to executions, torture is systematically employed in detention centers and forced labor camps throughout the country. Political prisoners and their families are subjected to methods including beatings, electric shocks, waterboarding simulations, and other forms of physical and psychological abuse. These practices aim not only to punish dissenters, but also to extract forced confessions and maintain absolute control over the population, perpetuating the climate of fear and repression that characterizes Kim Jong-un's regime. The exploitation of forced labor in political prisoner camps, known as gulags in North Korea, represents one of the most atrocious and systematic practices under Kim Jong-un's regime. These camps, located in remote and closely monitored areas by military authorities, are used to imprison political dissidents, government critics, and their families, as well as individuals accused of political or religious crimes. Prisoners endure extremely harsh conditions, including physically exhausting and sometimes dangerous labor, with no regard for basic human rights. Within these camps, prisoners face long workdays, often without adequate rest or safety conditions. Forced labor includes agriculture, mining, construction, and manufacturing, where prisoners are expected to produce goods and food for the state under threat of severe punishment for non-compliance or low performance. In addition to exhausting physical work, prisoners also endure physical abuse, torture, and mistreatment by guards and supervisors. Living conditions in the gulags are extremely poor, with overcrowded facilities, food shortages, and inadequate medical care. Prisoners are kept under strict control regimes, with limited access to external communications and frequent acts of intimidation and retaliation against those who attempt to escape or challenge camp authority. This systematic exploitation of forced labor not only violates international human rights standards, but also perpetuates a cycle of repression and fear within North Korean society, ensuring absolute control by the regime over its population. Allegations of unethical medical experimentation in North Korea, including testing of chemical and biological weapons on political prisoners, are extremely alarming and reflect one of the most chilling forms of abuse under Kim Jong-un's regime. Reports from defectors and human rights organizations have documented cases where political prisoners are used as subjects of medical experiments without their consent and under extremely coercive conditions. These experiments are believed to include testing of chemical and biological weapons, as well as invasive and potentially lethal medical procedures designed to study the effects of these substances on human beings. These acts not only constitute a serious violation of fundamental human rights, but also defy international norms of medical ethics and human rights treaties that prohibit experimentation without informed consent and protection of human dignity. Victims of these experiments are often vulnerable individuals with no ability to protect themselves, such as political prisoners who already face extreme conditions of detention and systematic abuse. In addition to the physical and health risks they face, Prisoners suffer severe psychological distress and degradation of their human dignity, thereby perpetuating regime control and repression of any form of dissent. These practices not only underscore the brutality of the North Korean regime toward its citizens, but also demand an urgent and coordinated response from the international community to end such atrocities and ensure accountability for those responsible for these inhuman acts. The alleged involvement of North Korea in international drug trafficking and smuggling is a serious accusation that has raised global concerns. It is claimed that Kim Jong Un's regime has used these illicit activities as a way to obtain foreign currency and evade the severe economic sanctions imposed by the international community. Reports indicate that North Korean agents have been involved in the production and distribution of narcotics, such as methamphetamine and heroin, in various parts of the world. These illegal operations not only generate significant revenues for the regime, but are also used to finance other state activities, including military development and maintaining the security apparatus. In addition to drug trafficking, North Korea has also been accused of engaging in smuggling activities, ranging from the illegal sale of weapons to the illegal export of luxury goods. These operations not only violate international laws, but also undermine global efforts to maintain peace and stability. The involvement in these illicit activities is not only seen as a threat to international security, but also reflects the regime's desperation to obtain resources amid increasingly severe economic sanctions. The implications of these actions can have significant repercussions on diplomatic relations and efforts to promote an international order based on norms and mutual respect. Reports of human trafficking and modern slavery associated with North Korea reveal a disturbing and systematic reality under the government of Kim Jong Un. It has been documented that the North Korean regime engages in human trafficking, especially of women and children, both within the country and abroad, for purposes of sexual and labor exploitation. Within North Korea, women and girls are often victims of trafficking networks that force them to work in industries such as forced prostitution and sexual entertainment. These victims are often deceived with promises of decent work, or kidnapped and sold by traffickers who operate with impunity under the authoritarian regime. Outside of North Korea, the government has also been accused of sending workers to other countries under coercive and exploitative conditions. These workers, often sent to fulfill labor contracts in sectors such as construction and agriculture, face abusive working conditions, long hours, and meager wages, with much of their earnings confiscated by the North Korean government. These acts of human trafficking and modern slavery not only violate the fundamental rights of victims, but also contribute to perpetuating a system of control and repression within and beyond North Korea's borders. The international community has repeatedly condemned these practices and urged the North Korean government to take action to combat human trafficking and protect the basic human rights of its population. Surely restrictions on freedom of expression and gulags are just measures to protect the happiness and well-being of all North Koreans. Why do you think many people consider Kim Jong Un a dictator? Let me know in the comments, and I'll leave some videos on screen for you to click right now.